All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to try and decode the really unique psychology of the generation that grew up in the 1980s. You know, the last generation that actually remembers what the world was like before the internet.
You've probably heard something like this before, right? It just perfectly captures this feeling a lot of folks from that era share. I mean, it was a time of just wild freedom. And yeah, let's be honest, some pretty questionable safety standards.
But that's the big question, isn't it? What did it actually build? So let's dive in. We're going to explore how this analog childhood, followed by a totally digital adolescence, forged this one-of-a-kind mindset. They're like a psychological bridge between two completely different worlds.
Okay, so we've got to start right here. In a world of, tangible objects, physical media, and a ton of unsupervised time, this was the foundation for everything that came later. I mean, just look at this list. Life just operated with a level of risk and personal responsibility that, wow, it's almost unimaginable today. You learned how to navigate the real physical world because you had to. And that kind of confidence, it doesn't just go away. It gets baked right into your bones.
And the entertainment. What's so wild is that it wasn't on demand like it is now. It was an event. It took actual effort, patience, and you had to have the physical thing in your hand. You couldn't just click a button. You really had to work for it.
Oh, and you just knew the DJ was going to talk all over the intro, right? Every single time. But this whole experience, this delayed gratification, this waiting and working for the reward, it had a really profound psychological impact. And this all leads to a super important point. Their brains were literally wired for the chase, not just the catch. Psychologists talk about this, how it developed stronger dopamine regulation and impulse control. Instant gratification can feel a little hollow when you're used to actually earning the prize. And think about this. Coming home to an empty house with that key around your neck, it trained you to operate without supervision. This created this foundation of just radical self-reliance that, if you're from that generation, you probably still carry with you. You just learned how to figure stuff out on your own. Okay, so now let's see how that solid foundation got tested. Because just as they were getting comfortable in that analog world, boom, everything changed at an absolutely incredible speed.
You look at this timeline, and it's just this incredibly rapid sequence of tech revolutions, all happening during their most formative years. It created this kind of existential whiplash. The world they were getting ready for just kept changing the rules on them.
This quote, man, it just perfectly illustrates their unique spot. They're not digital natives who were born into all this. They actually remember the before. And that gives them this really unique, and often, let's face it, pretty skeptical perspective on our hyper-connected reality. So this massive transition, it sculpted a totally unique psychological profile. It made them a bridge, or, a hinge, between two completely different eras. And that's actually a real term sociologists use to describe their role. They're the emotional and cultural shock absorbers of modern life. They had to translate the old world for the new one, and they were often the ones holding families, friendships, and even whole workplaces together through the chaos. Now this is fascinating stuff. Their minds were literally forced to hold two completely incompatible sets of rules at the same time. They were taught one set of values, and then they walked into an adult world that was running on a totally different, often contradictory operating system.
And what do you get from all that double coding? You get this hallmark trait. Now, this isn't just being cynical. It's a really practical, resilient mindset that was born from a lifetime of navigating constant change. They just expect things to get disrupted, so they're almost never caught completely off guard.
Okay, so this totally unique upbringing also gave them a very particular superpower, a finely tuned ability to spot when something is just not authentic.
When you mix all these traits together, you get what you could basically call a bullshit radar. And it comes from decades of just watching the world shift its masks. It's why they tend to trust real, tangible signals way more than just digital noise. They learn to read the room, not just the screen.
But in the end, their greatest psychological feature isn't really a trait at all. It's the memory that they carry inside them.
I mean, just think about that for a second. They remember what boredom felt like. They remember having to wait for things. They remember a time before algorithms were curating their own heartbeats. And that gives them this rare, almost archaeological value in the world we live in today.
And that's it, right there. That duality is the absolute core of their identity. Their They're a living bridge between patience and speed, between privacy and total exposure, between simplicity and mind-boggling complexity. They literally hold both of those worlds inside of them.
So what does this all mean? Ultimately, their experience isn't just about nostalgia. It's a data set. It's a living record of what it means to be human during a time of radical, insane transformation. And in a world that just never, ever stops accelerating, well, that's a lesson we might all need to learn.